Okay, I had trouble getting on via Skype, so I had to restart my computer, guys. But hello again. Ready for round
We're
two?
back. We're ready.
All right. Hi, Eric again. That's
You
your new
sound
last
like
name
the.
again, Eric again. All right. So we
I
talked
like it.
about humans 100 years from now in a previous session. So I was thinking about going off into the future a little bit more, into 10,000 years, and then eventually in a session 100,000 years. But 10,000 years, maybe I should ask 1,000 years. What do you think, Eric? 1,000 or 10,000? What seems more interesting?
He says. He says go to. He goes. Well, we can talk about the gap. What we'll see between 1,000 to 10,000. But when he's talking about 10,000, he's saying like the things that he would describe would be very hard for people to accept,
Okay.
believe, whatever.
Well, we're here to
So
grow, stretch our comfort zone in our minds and our hearts.
when you said that, he showed me an image of like, do you remember? I don't remember what that cartoon was called. They'd be like, "Go, go, gadget," and then the arm just like
Oh
extends out
yeah,
20.
Mr. Gadget, wasn't it? Inspector Gadget
Was
or
that
something.
it?
I think Inspector
Yeah,
Gadget.
that
Yeah.
was. So, and then when you said that we're here to grow, that's what he showed, and like
It's like
people's
Stretch
arms like breaking
Armstrong.
out.
It must be Stretch Armstrong more than that. So, well, you
I
want.
said, you always show so much crazy stuff. He's like, well, I got to keep it interesting, got to keep it fun.
Well, let's just go to 10,000 years then. Just stretch people, stretch Armstrong people. Um, First of all, well, what will our bodies be like at 10,000 years?
He's showing, um, I think this is before 10,000 because he went to 10,000 and then he brought it back some. So I'm looking at like 6,000. I don't know. I
Okay.
don't know why he does, but or even before then, he's pulling it back more. So you're going to see bodies begin to change in many ways. He's talking about like proportions will change,
Mm-hmm.
and then eventually, when we're looking at 10,000 years, he actually makes me feel like we won't need the body.
Wow.
When we're looking at a whole, Mom, he says, when we're looking at a whole consciousness, um, okay, he just like interrupted himself and then showed me like um, this one concept I'm still trying to like wrap my head around. I'm sure you've heard, we've talked about like walk-ins, that
Oh
whole
yeah. Uh huh.
concept. I'm still trying to like wrap my head around that. And he's
Mm.
showing like when he's trying to show me the bodies, we're looking at 10,000 years, you're going to see people like very easily be able to shift from one body to the next.
Wow. Body hoppers.
Like, hey, you want to trade for a little bit?
That's like
Because
swingers.
it's in a weird way. But he's showing like, he goes, Mom, do you remember when we talked to Bigfoot and we brought that level of consciousness through?
Mm-hmm.
He says it's that level of consciousness that creates the physical change.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he's talking about here too, I think, like with our level of expansion at that time, we'll be able to move in and out of each other
Cool.
on a much more spiritual basis, ethereal, I can't pronounce that,
Ethereal. Yeah.
ethereal basis, instead of depending on the physical existence.
Will we be able to shift it from one dimension to the next
He says yes.
easily? I mean, will it be able to go to where you are, Eric?
He says easily, I wouldn't call it easily at 10,000 years, like
Okay.
from that time frame.
Mm-hmm.
He says, I wouldn't call it easy, but you will see it done.
Okay. All right. What will our emotions be like? Will they change?
This is so random. I will have him answer that question in just a minute. He said, he looked at me and he goes, oh, he goes, you're going to miss food. And
Oh,
I was like, what? And he put like this big, beautiful looking like stuffed pepper in front of me.
that is
I'm gonna make
random.
that. But yeah, he put this big stuffed pepper. He said, aren't you going to miss it? Doesn't it smell good? And then he started talking about how like the physical body will not need or won't depend on like nutrients in the physical form anymore. It's going to realize the level of consciousness at that time will realize that nutrients comes from consciousness.
Yeah. It's all energy.
And
We could just feed on
of
energy.
consciousness.
We just feed on
And he
energy, right?
goes,
Oh God.
oh, he goes, how about that for a mind fuck? Wrap your head around that one.
Yeah, really. As long as I can have my Nutrageous bars, my Twix bars, I'm good. And
As
Snickers.
long as I can always experience spaghetti and chocolate.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's pretty weird. What about our emotions then?
He says, Mom, you won't, there will be no life given to them because you'll see them as something chosen by the ego to have existence.
Mm-hmm.
So he shows emotions here. He says you will literally rise above that to where you don't need those experiences to feel or to know yourself. You will know yourself beyond and outside of
awesome.
emotions. Your existence won't be governed by that shit anymore. He says, yep, and I call it shit because the essence of you, which is love, isn't governed by emotions. If it is, you haven't woke up yet. You haven't woken up from your sleep. You're still in a stupor. You're still in an illusion. He's kind of going into, not a whole lot because it's a whole nother can of worms, but he's kind of going into, well, right now, what's needed is that polarity between the different emotions, and that's what's creating our evolution. That's what's pushing us to and through it, Mom.
Okay.
He says, as we have these polar opposite experiences with emotions, eventually, when we allow healing again, when we say yes to that, we look back and think, oh, I guess maybe I overreacted. Maybe I didn't have to be or feel that way. We come to that realization that that really wasn't needed.
Okay.
Essentially, what you are is constant, and it becomes disrupted when you host negative emotions.
Okay. Now, what about the environment? What will our environment look like? What big changes? I need to keep it brief because we don't have that much more time.
He goes, less trash, less shit.
Good.
He says, because again, we're looking internally for food, for nutrients, for life, and all of those things. So we're not going to need all these external things that essentially can create a lot of pollution for our existence. And then he started talking about like travel. He says we will, when we advance far, far into the future, we won't need cars to travel. He says we will understand that we're capable without vehicles. And he's just kind of he could talk forever about this.
Well, you can't take your body with you. Your soul can just travel maybe, but then maybe they could have like those bicycles, those stands of bicycles that you just like are in another country and you rent, or in another city you rent the bicycle and then you go someplace and you just drop it off at the location there. We'll just body hop. We just like rent a body and I want to go to Tuscany. Okay, let me rent a body there for when I get there. That'd be fun.
That's hilarious.
Do we have any
showing like shifting your consciousness, aligning in the awakened state, and that being the essence of your travel.
What else will be different about our world? Like, will we have borders?
He's so random. He's like, you won't need cars. You won't need tires. He's like, tires are shitty. Tires are a lot of pollution.
Oh, they are.
He's just like going off, like just rambling.
Well, what will our dwellings look like? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
When you said, like, what other changes will there be? He says, Mom, the one thing that everybody wants for, but nobody knows how to get. Everybody longs for life in their own existence being easy. And in this time, in this frame of mind that we're talking about, 10,000 years from now, people will understand that they are their own cause of unease. He goes, I don't fucking care what we're talking about. He says, at this point in time, we will all be very well adapted to that understanding, like that we are the cause of our own unease. What we resist, we react to. Essentially, we're causing our own harm or causing our own disruption of peace. But in this frame of time, that will be long gone, he says.
Okay. I know I could do an hour on this subject alone, but we don't have that. But will we still live in houses and condos and apartments and things like that?
Um, he says yes, but I think they're going to be really different. They don't look anything like the kind of houses that we're used to. They look like a hut in the woods, like something
Okay.
way more natural,
Oh,
environmentally
friendly?
friendly. And he's actually showing our bodies too being, this is so weird. It's just like you can't even wrap your head around it, but whatever. He's actually showing like our bodies being less harmed, if at all, or affected by the external environment.
Oh.
You know, the hot sun or the
Mm-hmm.
freezing cold temperatures, because of our level of consciousness, and to change that to adapt to the energy around you.
Okay.
Because think about it. He says, if you're at a certain vibration and the environment is like all snowy and shit and freezing cold, you haven't changed to adapt.
Yeah.
But the
But we'll be able to
environment has
change our
changed
vibration to adapt, right?
to adapt
Okay.
so that it doesn't harm our physical body.
All right. I have to move on kind of quickly. Sorry, guys. Any technological or scientific breakthroughs? What is the number one breakthrough at around that period of time, 10,000 years from now?
He smiled. he's like, ting. He has this little bell. He says, the scientific breakthrough, the technological advance is not needing it at that point in time, not needing it to make a connection, to find information. He's like, he says, people these days wouldn't know what to do without Google,
I
but
know.
they will at this time understand. He says they are Google. They will look in themselves for answers to anything. He says, Mom, it's like merging. You merge with any source of
Like you do.
information.
Yeah, like Eric, like you do. You merge with information gosh, that'll change the whole school system right there. Just merge with the
That's what he
information and you won't need school anymore.
That's what he's showing. Like he's literally showing like a when you ask like what are he just like showed like computers and cell phones just like combusting, like they just
Oh, cool.
evaporate and
Okay, moving on.
they won't.
Will we have money or will we barter? What will commerce look like then?
That's a good question. Um, he says money becomes there's no value there.
Okay.
He's showing like there being no value. It's going to be more. You're going to see more barter than
Okay.
anything, Mom.
All
But
right.
this is where we go back to primitive living, like bartering with meats or things of the environment. He
Okay.
shows. Um, so it's interesting. I don't think money is going to have value.
Awesome. What about war? Will there still be war?
He takes this just beyond 10,000 years,
Okay.
and he's
Oh, good. What
uh,
about aliens? Our
it's more.
relationship with aliens?
He started playing this weird music, and he got real close to the computer, and he's like, "We are the aliens, Mom."
I
He
know.
says. He says,
Other alien
sorry for that
species.
close up.
Other alien
Sorry for the close
species.
up. He's who he is. But he's showing like it's like there will be more direct interaction or contact, because in that realization, that statement that he said, we are the aliens, essentially the realization that we're not separate, he says, that we're all one. The term will
Ah.
no longer be in use. The
Oh, that
term
makes sense.
aliens,
What
that
about our what about our
it means
DNA?
something.
Will our DNA still be the same? Based on
Mm-mm.
okay, what will it be based on
He
something
quickly
else?
showed that changing too. He says that this will be, he says, this is interesting. See, I would love to just like talk to a scientist about this. He's showing DNA makeup changing because of I guess, the absence of emotions. Like they're understood, but they really become a separate entity. And because we vibrate at such a higher level, that's what changes our DNA. So that essentially, too, he says, is what manifests a different physical structure, different body. So he's
That's
like
like the
showing
biology,
proportions.
Bruce Lipton's biology of belief, that belief or thoughts can actually change your DNA. So it's almost like that, huh?
He says they do, Mom.
Will it
Is
be
his
still
response.
carbon based DNA?
He says he shakes his head no.
What will it be based on? Silica or
He's
light?
he's just being very. Um, he pulls his energy back and he goes, I want you to follow me for a minute. He pulls his energy back and he says, it's going to be based on you. Now, you in the spiritual self is a light, a frequency, a vibration.
Ah,
The physical self is that slowed down in the more dense form.
mm-hmm.
So the essence of your, um, he says mechanical makeup, but he's showing me like the flesh. He
Mm-hmm.
says like he's talking about the physical body being based on your consciousness, which essentially is light and the light source.
Okay.
Um, I don't know why he interrupted himself and used the word permeable. I have no idea how that applies
Well,
to
will it be
anything.
light based then? DNA will be just a light made of light?
He says it will, and then when he said the word permeable, he literally showed himself like walking in the physical form, walking up to another human and not having that stop
Stop mechanism?
mechanism,
Oh,
like being
cool.
able to touch through them, but in the physical form
Well, that's
because
cool.
of the.
How we
So
vibrate.
that's
Well,
what
there's more empty space between atoms. There's 99% empty space, so being solid is kind of an illusion, really. We should be able to pass through each other. Last question. You talked about the bodies and how there'd be a little bit different proportion. Can you give me a little bit more detail on how our bodies will have changed by then?
he shows us being um, bigger,
Mm-hmm.
not bigger build, but like taller. He shows overall more commonly taller,
Okay.
um, thinner. I see like a bunch of people that are just a much thinner build.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he says, Mom, you have to understand vibrationally, emotions create so much illness and ailment, and that's what leads to the physical features we see today. He
Mm.
says, now when we shed all of that and we're not emotionally driven and our existence isn't emotionally dependent, you'll see literally he says he shows them becoming taller and slender because of our light based existence, he
Okay.
says. um, and it's literally like we drop this whole package that's the emotions, like he shows all the emotions just being let go, and that's what changes our stature. So he shows like it's interesting, very similar between male and female. Like much, how females are much
Mm-hmm.
curvier. Um, I don't see that. I don't
Okay.
see like that curve. Um, very similar build. Breasts are not gigantic, like he says. He says, just less differences between male and female gender.
Okay.
So
Well, we
that's
still be able to
really.
feel, though, right? Feel love and
He says
compassion and
He says you will. It's more like me. It's more of in a state of euphoria,
so
but
not
that's all you'll know.
the negative emotions is what will drop. Okay, good. All right.
Exactly.
Well,
That's
we've
what.
gone overtime a little bit. I feel bad about that. 3 minutes, but anywho, thank you guys for watching. Kim, thank you so much
Okay.
for giving a voice to
Sure.
my son, and thank you, Eric. I love you, sweetie.
He's like, mwah, 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 mwah. He says, I love you, Mom.
Bye,
He
guys.
says, you. Bye.
Bye bye.